as always, and for all your support during the week and the shares and everything else that you do for us. I want to thank Alexander Weinstein for coming on last week to talk about his writing and creativity and speculative fiction, and his his short novel that became a film starring our very own Colin Farrell, which is it's called After Yang, by the way. You should definitely check it out. It's really good. I want to also thank Joanne, Sinead, Shirley, and Mark over there at the Clockwork Junkie podcast for supporting us on the, what's it called? Buy Me a Coffee thing. We have this has only started, this Buy Me a Coffee thing, and it's out there now. And it's you'll see the link, it's under all this kind of stuff. But what we're going to do, I put up a video yesterday, and it was to do with, we're going to do like a series where the people who are on that will kind of get first dibs on what they want me to do a little episode about. So it could be about anything, like a piece of art, a book, an album, whatever. Crime. Someone asked me to do something about a crime that happened in the past. Very vague. And other kind of stuff. And it'll be, you can put in anything there as long as it's within reason and, I'm comfortable talking about it. So yeah, that's in Buy Me a Coffee. Have a look at that. So anyway, that's all that out of the way. That introduction is getting longer and longer, and I'm going to have to trim down some of it. I want to introduce my guest today. She's an artist, a creative photographer, and a community arts teacher. And her name is Cher Gleeson. How are you doing, Cher?
Hi, how are you doing, Derek?
I am very well, thanks. Your name, you were I only found this out the other day, obviously, because you put it
Yeah,
up. You were named after the pop icon, Cher.
I was back in the 70s. So my mother and father were kind of hippies back in the day, and they were mad about her. Mammy used to actually quite look like Cher. She had the very long black hair back in the days when Cher was with Sonny.
Mm.
So when I was born, I was named after Cher, and yeah,
Good person to be named after.
it is. It is.
Yeah, I was named after Derek Davis. I know.
Oh, right.
No, I was. I've used that. I've used that joke so many times, and
Right.
very few people get it. I think it's
Yeah.
got to be a specific generation as to get it. But
Yeah.
no, I wasn't. I wasn't named after anyone. But I'm stuck with it, and that's that. The person who named me that knows I don't like it anyway, so it's fair enough. But listen, Cher, we always start at the same place. Could you give us a brief history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, so I suppose I was born near the town of Cashel, which is in County Tipperary, down south Tipperary. And I was the only girl, I suppose, the whole way through school. I was in a very small primary school, so there was only 40 children in it. I was the only girl in a class of boys the whole way through. So I would have been quite a tomboy when I was young. And loved primary school, though it was good crack because it was out in the country. And myself and some of the other students, I suppose our claim to fame was we started a club in school called the Break All the Rules Club. So that was kind of setting the precedent for the rest of my life. After that, then I went into a convent, which was a total, culture shock. That was where the secondary school education was in Cashel. And as far as family will say, my dad would be quite creative. So he's a builder by trade, but he would do a lot of photography. And he's recently won a licensed membership with the Royal Photographic Society in England. So he's really good. He does a lot of kind of black and white imagery and things like that. My mum liked to sketch. I love sketching myself as well. And my grandmother would have taught drama and art and dancing in the place where I now run my own business from. So I kind of have it from all sides of the family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good, and I'm glad it kind of carried on.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that we'll obviously chat about that and how when you kind
Mhm.
of started. The other question we always ask is then when did you first become aware of mental health?
I suppose I think probably in secondary school, coming up to the leaving cert, I suppose it's when most of us kind of start feeling pressure, maybe. Back then it was huge pressure on, what you would do in your career and things like that. So I think it was for my leaving cert. I just remember getting very anxious and kind of like just, oh, I can't do it. I don't want to go on. I can't, you know what I mean? All this, just the pressure. I couldn't believe it. I'd just get panic attacks and things like that, just thinking about school, and I'd be just overwhelmed at the thought of I couldn't live in the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would always be thinking about what's going to happen if I can't do this, and do you know what I mean? So I was just overwhelming myself. So I think I would have suffered then. It went from anxiety to depression, but always kind of situational depression. Like I lost my mother when I was 24,
Okay.
and she had battled cancer for 12 years. she would have had it, I think, 3 times. And eventually the third time then it had gone to her bones and things. So she died of cancer when I was 24. So I think that had a huge effect on me. I was on an adult education art course at the time. So I kind of really threw myself into work. And we were doing exams and things at the time, and I had a performance to do. So I kind of didn't deal with the grief at that time. And then I would have tried different, I suppose, antidepressants under doctors' instructions, so I would have been on Prozac, which didn't agree with me because I just felt numb all the time. Like, you could have come in and said the whole world was ending, I was like, right, Branch, whatever.
Yeah.
I just felt nothing. And to be creative and to have that stifled in you was terrible, So yeah, it's just been a thing with me all the time. But I've always spoken about it, and I've always connected well with people that talk about their struggles as well. I would have gotten very involved in, we founded the first committee for the Darkness into Light for Pieta House when it came to Cashel. So I was one of the founding members for that. And, different things I would have always been involved in, raising money for mental health. It's always been huge for me,
Fair play. I think you hear about it in history, throughout history of creativity and mental health.
Yeah.
Seem to go hand in hand with each other. And that's interesting what you say about, not wanting to kind of numb that creativity by taking, because I have talked about it, obviously a number of times on here about, obviously I'm on a medication now, but when I was on the wrong type, that idea of like you numb and kind of that zombie like feeling, and the constant feeling that you needed to sleep or something, that it was
yes, or eat, or I got kind of compulsive behaviors on some of the medication. I would have tried about 5. Now I'm on one that fits nearly 20 years later, so I just think if anyone is struggling and trying medication and it doesn't work, you can try different types if that's the route you do want to go down. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
That is very important, because I had to do that myself, kind of switch around a bit, and just look, finding the right thing. And it would go for a physical sickness as well. It's not it's not just the mental side of it. So growing up then, obviously you had the creativity around you, but do you remember what you were specifically drawn to? That's a pun there that wasn't intended, but it works. It works. No, but was there something that you were drawn to early on?
Do you mean like in the artistic sense, is it?
Yeah,
I suppose when I was coming up to my leaving cert, we got the option of doing fine art more and art, and I loved it. I just wanted to be my art teacher because, as I was saying before, I went to a convent, so we did a lot of nuns, very conservative teachers. But this teacher used to come in on Fridays with black curly hair and crazy clothes, and I was like, oh my God, I want to be her. She was so confident, and that was my dream job, just to do that. And she would have introduced me to a lot of kind of different artists. And so she also taught us a little bit of photography. So I think that was where I kind of really found my niche as such. I always had an interest in photography, probably from Dad, but I always had a camera, even going around. Some of my friends would say that now, you always had a camera when none of us had cameras, little cheap ones. But I always like to document the moment. And I think maybe some of that was because of Mum being sick. I kind of knew there was a time on things, so I would be very conscious of photographing people all the time and having memories, a lot of them and stuff,
So when did Cher's Creative Cabin come about? Like what when?
So I suppose when I left college, I would have hired a lot of community centres. I lived in Waterford for years, and then I moved back up to Cashel when I had my kids and stuff. I would have hired a lot of community centres, to run arts classes for adults and children, and they were all great. But the thing is that you would be, say, booking a room for 2 hours, and then to pay for another hour to heat them and stuff, and it was just hard. So eventually I found my cabin on Dundee, which was a pile of planks that had been disassembled up the country, and brought it down here and put it on the site. And as I was saying before, my grandmother used to teach drama and dance from here, so it's kind of nice to have that connection coming back around. It was also the site of a forge and a garage here in my granddad's time, so it's always been a meeting space for the community, And I think it's nice that that's carrying on, because even when parents come in to collect the kids, they could be outside chatting away in the yard for hours and stuff. It's lovely. I love the buzz of people around. I really like that.
Yeah, and like obviously it's become even bigger in the last, couple of years
Yeah.
I try not to talk about it too much. But like, you know what I
Mm,
mean? You can see it, and I see it outside. I teach kids jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. So
yes.
it's a
Mm,
similar idea of seeing people outside chatting who, you
mm,
know,
mm.
the kids weren't obviously coming near us for almost 2 years, like in most places.
Yes.
So that kind of connection is really nice. Um, Also, I get, when you put up on social media that what you do with the kids. So it's like you were doing a Halloween workshops. Obviously, you're going to be
That's right.
doing
Yeah.
Christmas stuff, and like it's when I'm looking at it from someone who's not. I like to write and stuff like that, but I wouldn't be artistic in the sense of creating
Mm,
stuff out things out of nowhere. I know you do that in writing as well, but you know what I mean, physically
mm, mm,
creating things. But
mm.
you were doing like the Halloween costumes, obviously, and now you're doing Christmas wreaths and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
There's something about the Christmas wreath thing there that I was looking at, and the book folding and stuff like that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Now it might to the untrained eye, it looks kind of time consuming, but also very relaxing.
Oh my God, totally. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The book folding came about during COVID, the word we didn't really want to mention. But
sorry.
I had to teach online, like a lot of people had to do, because I work with the ETB as well, Tipperary Education and Training Board. So we kind of had an idea to bring our classes online just to keep people connected to learning, and also as a social connection for a lot of people that were very isolated. So I was trying to look up things that I could teach online that with people could find something in their house to work
Mm,
with, because there were no shops open. We weren't to go out at certain times and things like that. Plus, a lot of my people would have been very vulnerable
yeah,
medically. So the books, looked it up, found it, and it is really mindful. Now, I know mindfulness and meditation work for a lot of people, but personally, if I'm in a room and somebody says to me, close your eyes and go up a hill, I'm just sitting there thinking of
mm,
what I have to do. I cannot switch off. But everyone that has done those classes just say, when you're folding, you nearly can't stop. It's
yeah.
addictive, very relaxing, and everybody loves it if something achieved at the end of it with a book they might have been thrown out or something. So all the crafts I would do would be based on upcycling, and
Mm,
they would have a meditative kind of an aspect to a lot of them. And I find like I create a space where people can chat. Now I'm still going out doing workshops in communities through my job with the Education Training Board, but like we'd always have a very relaxed atmosphere. There's something about people, I think, when they feel safe,
mm,
and they're creating, they speak, and sometimes that's more constructive than getting them in primarily to speak about things. Like if we're doing something for health awareness week or something, maybe introducing a craft makes it less intimidating.
yeah.
And then the things start to flow when people are making things, and when they don't have to make direct eye contact maybe, and they're
Yeah.
folding or painting. And it's magical. I love when that happens. Do you know what I mean? So it's great.
It's interesting that you say that, actually, Cher, because like when I started in CrossFit and jiu-jitsu and stuff, a
Mm,
number of years ago now, but I was of that when I was going in there, I still wasn't like I am now. I still felt I was a little bit, struggling with anxiety in particular. And the way you can go into somewhere like that, and like obviously it's different, but where when I'm doing a workout or something, don't have to make eye contact with people necessarily, but I can still
mm,
chat away with people. The clock is on. If you're lifting weights or something, you have to do it every 2 minutes. But that was very relaxing to me, and like that makes a lot of sense with crafts and stuff, that you can
mm,
be stuck into something. There's obviously an achievement at the end, just like there is in CrossFit
mm,
and jiu-jitsu and stuff, but it's there in your hand. And I also looked at when you were doing the scars and stuff for the kids,
mm,
like, and
mm,
that kids
mm.
must love that stuff, because like they like the kind of gory aspect of
Oh, they
things.
do, they
Yeah.
do, they do. And the one thing they know about here is like anything goes within
Mm,
reason. Do you know what I mean? So they can cut loose. Like a lot of people, they mightn't let them play with more messier things at home. Understandably, they're trying to keep the
mm,
place clean or whatever. But yeah, they wanted to do the scars. I have all my certificates from different colleges and courses on the walls here. So they spotted. I trained with the Galway Film Centre years and years
okay.
ago after college in film for makeup and TV,
Mm,
and I qualified with Snazaroo for like face painting and stuff like that as well. So they were on day 2 of the Halloween camp. They were like, "Can you show us how to do bullet holes, scars,
yeah.
cuts, wounds, burns?" So yeah, we did that, and they loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Of course, yeah. I
Yeah,
think another thing, upcycling is quite a big thing now, and you see TV shows and stuff, and they do that specifically about upcycling. That's what
yeah.
getting something that people are about to throw in a skip and stuff. And I did notice that you did some, bigger like projects. Like people might look at a kitchen, a chair at a kitchen table, and think, I'll just throw
Mm,
that out
mm.
instead of maybe turning it into something. can you explain for me, like, this might be difficult, but can you explain for me, like, where that idea, those ideas come from? Because I can't, like, think of myself as seeing a chair turn into a, a press or something,
Yeah, I suppose again it's something that's in people. So a lot of people
Mm.
coming to the upcycling workshops, they might have like a family heirloom. Like we just started a project now with the ETB in Clonmel last week, and so everybody was kind of given the idea of 8 students to bring in something small because of space and things, and
Mhm.
also that they will have it done, in the next few weeks. So I noticed a lot of people are bringing in things maybe that belong to grandparents, so chairs or something like that, but they might want to upholster it, or as you were saying, turn it into something else as well. So it's just, I think people maybe just wanting to keep that little bit of a connection with the past, but to turn it into something more useful as well.
Yeah, and
And to learn the skills then, stripping back furniture. I do basic upholstery with them, and the women love learning how to use the power tools
mm,
and all that kind of thing. It's great. And again, great chats for those classes as well.
yeah, and there's too much, waste. It's too easy just to throw stuff out and buy
Yeah,
something
yeah,
new, and
yeah.
it's
Mm.
better that we get rid of that. Sure, I'm going to throw an advert in here, and then we'll get
Okay,
back
no
to it. It's
problem.
okay. All
Yeah,
right,
perfect.
I'm going to nail this one today. No. How do I not know it off by heart? Fusion Training Center, Monk's Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center, train like a warrior. Phew, got through it. I'm flying through it now. I used to be real slow, but now I'm just like, get it out of the way.
Practice
And
makes perfect.
it does make perfect. I
Mm.
will one day. I'm trying to find the right person to just not like pick up the copy and try and just recycle it out my
Yeah,
head, but it seems unlikely.
yeah.
So photography, like you said, you got into photography quite young when your dad was doing it and stuff, but you describe it as creative photography. So
Mm.
what would the difference be?
So I suppose basically in photography you'd have to learn your basic technical skills anyway, but my own art even since college would always have been quite conceptual, so more about the idea rather than even the finished project,
Mhm.
and more important than the aesthetic or the technical setting. So like I'd often maybe over edit a photo like a landscape. If I want to portray a certain mood or an atmosphere, I'd almost add like darker tones to it or make it more painting like. um like my own influences in photography, I would have liked Francesca Woodman. She would have worked a lot with mental health
Mhm.
and females as the subjects, and she would have taken a lot of self-portraits, but would have blurred them so she's almost merging into the background because that's how she
Right,
felt. So
right.
I love that you can portray that kind of thing through your photography, and just to come up with an idea and you know work that way with it. Then when I'm photographing events for people, I love vintage cars. I always have, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
there was a garage here years ago, so the place was full of I'd been playing in Morris Minors when I
Mm.
was young and things like that. So I photograph events, but again, instead of just taking the usual photos of the cars in a row, I would do those because that's what a lot of clients want. But I might get them from different angles and special details that other people might miss on their cars. I capture and they're like, "Oh my God, can I get a print of that?" And
Mm.
so it's just different. I look at things differently, but you're actually resonating with the person that owns the car because it might have been something that brought them to it in the first place as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I saw a couple that were up on your Instagram quite
mm,
recently, and it was interesting because they looked kind of the way you played around with made them slightly darker and stuff, and they
yeah,
looked
yeah.
kind of creepy, like old,
Mm, mm.
Hammer Halloween horror
Yeah,
films and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
love all that style, the pre and even pre-code horror. I love all
yeah,
the really early silent movies and things. The lighting is just crazy. It's
yeah.
beautiful to look at.
There was something about that, like the lighting. They had to do it in a much more I suppose a lot more difficult way than they have to now because they can play around with
Mm.
things an awful lot. But the idea of even kind of set designs and even the way they can work
Yeah,
things
yeah,
out,
yeah.
and I like the way you talked about the vintage car, and I saw some of those kind of photos, and there's just something perfect about some of the stuff that you do with the almost like the grass growing around the car, like as if
Mm,
that's
mm.
kind of amazing to me, that like these cars that were, to someone like you who does love vintage cars, that they're just
Mm.
there. They're
Yeah, absolutely,
this
absolutely.
kind of stuff going around, and I am. I was reminded of, like, when you mentioned about the photography there, I was reminded of, I mentioned her in the podcast a couple of times, but Diane Arbus, the way she
Yeah,
took,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, you know, that kind of
Mm.
the use of because she took photos of people in psychiatric hospitals at the time, and
Right, yeah.
would put people in masks and stuff like that, and you know, be like front and center. They're the picture. It's not, you know, playing around with anything like that. And there was just something very, there's something very like I find her a fascinating subject because it's her psychologically. I'd love to know more about her, but there's not
Yeah.
enough of her kind of out
Mm,
there, you know, that
mm,
kind of
mm,
side of her.
mm.
But those kind of photographers are you know, are the braver ones, I'm guessing. But
Absolutely, yeah. Mm.
um, so when you are do you go out and about with the camera now? Is it like, or is it just the kind of like obviously you go to events and stuff, that's one thing, but
Mm.
when you're walking around, maybe going for a walk and stuff, do you bring the camera with you, or do you have the phone? Do you use the phone?
I'd have the phone because we
Yeah,
all do, I
yeah.
suppose, you know. So yeah, I would bring my camera if I'm going to certain places. Often when I'm just out with students as well, because I teach a lot of photography. So yeah, I would. But again, I don't like those blue picture perfect
Mhm.
skies and things, you know. I like one thing about Ireland now, the weather would annoy you, but I do like our clouds and
Yeah.
lighting some days, you know, it's atmospheric. So yeah, I would bring my camera around a lot when I have time, but that's the problem usually, you know, not having the time to go out with it, you know. Or
Yeah,
I see a perfect foggy morning where I want to do a photo and I have to be at class at 9:30, like, you know,
yeah.
so I can't jump out and start taking photos, you know.
And when
So
you when you're teaching photography, then like do you work with people in the photographs? Are you more landscape photographer, or is it combining the two really?
a combination of
Yeah.
both. It depends. Like we do a lot of projects. So we'll say we would have done one for mental health last year, Desolation and Hope. That was one. So we used the concept of addiction and recovery was
Mhm.
huge in that one at that time. So that would have been with people. Then sometimes, again, in a more conceptual sense, we could deal with mental health through like landscapes or alleyways or, you know, donning a mask, you know,
Mhm.
that kind of a way. So it doesn't have to be so literal, you know. So it
The-
depends really, you know. And the
yeah.
good thing about it is it's quite fluid, so it can go in any direction, you know.
There was one that you did actually about donning the mask, and I don't know if this was the first thing I saw of you
It
share
was,
on
yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's one, you know, it's very interesting because I think it can be taken in different ways depending on where you are.
Yeah.
You know, whether and I'm not saying like where you are in your mental health. It doesn't have to be about mental health, but the
Mm,
idea of you just said there about the mask and how
mm,
we
mm.
do tend to use it, and you know, I always talk about that idea of, you know, I was wearing masks for. I like to think that I don't wear them as often. I still do, like, you know, I think we
Mm,
all
mm,
have to for our own
absolutely.
sake,
Yeah.
but I was definitely wearing them for a very long time, and you know, like the big smile on your face, and it's not, you're not quite feeling that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of struck me as a piece of art where it wasn't. I don't know. There was just something about it, kind of haunting. Maybe
Yes.
that's the right
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose. Yeah. So it's more of a performance art
Hmm.
piece. But conceptual again. It's very simple. It was me with a white mask, one of the plain ones you get to decorate for kids for Halloween camp. But I wore it for a piece, and it's just series of movements. But I think the music and everything I used over it, and it's just you can do so much with so little, do you
Yeah.
know? And I think a lot of people contacted me about that piece afterwards. I suppose they resonated with it. Like so, while it would be, I would be like nude in it, but it wasn't distasteful and it
Yeah.
wasn't erotic in that sense. Do you know what I mean? And like I didn't get any reactions like that to it either, which is good because sometimes you can, you know, when you put
Mhm.
yourself out there. But I think everybody kind of got it on a deeper level, which was good, you know.
I was too busy being slightly uh, haunted by the mask, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like,
good, good.
because I don't know, it just the rest of it didn't really register at the start. You know, it was just
Yes,
kind of,
that's right. Yeah, that's what somebody said. It was like on the third or fourth view, you were like, "Oh my God, you're not," you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like it's just you in a mask, really, you know. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Mm,
That's what it was about, and obviously there's a few words to it as well. You know, but I just
mm,
found it very interesting. And then, like,
mm.
obviously, you mentioned someone who you're influenced as a photographer by, but like, what about then as an artist with regard? Because it's such a broad term, art, like in general. But what you play around it, you seem to play around with many different types of things and kind of dip your toe in the
Mm.
water of everything.
Yeah. So yeah, I like different artists. Like, so say going for writing, I would have loved Gothic fiction. So your
Mhm.
angels, your demons, your tombs, your mirrors, everything, all that imagery, Edgar Allan Poe, I have tattoos of his quotes on. Magritte I loved as well. A painter who did a lot. There's a famous painting by him called The Lovers, and it's a couple kissing, but they've got this cloth around them. So I did a piece
Oh
in
yeah.
college. My final degree piece was called Numb, and it was dealing with grief, but I basically just photographed myself screaming through a sheet, kind of very fine material. Um, so that will be on my own website for
Mhm.
just my artwork, which I'm setting up very soon. But yeah, so I liked that. I loved Greek mythology growing up, and the performance artists then of the 90s, when the Tate Gallery was getting going in the
Mhm.
Turner Prize. So you'd have Gillian Wearing and Tracy Emin, Marina Abramovic, all those kind of artists. I love people that push boundaries.
Yeah.
And I know, like for my degree show, it would have been unsettling for some people. I would have dealt with domestic violence in it and maybe sexual trauma in a sense. And I always remember a guy came up to me and said, "Why can't you just paint flowers?" Because they want the pretty picture,
Yeah.
and it's just made him really uncomfortable. Like, so to me, that was success. That I made him feel
Yeah.
that. I think it's good to make people feel uncomfortable. Sometimes.
I think, yeah, like it has to be challenging,
Absolutely, yeah.
I
Mm.
think like any art really, it has to be challenging in some way. And I think Marina Abram, I'll mess up her name, but you said it
Yeah.
beautifully. But
Mm.
I read her book, and I was like,
Mm. Mm.
knew a little bit about her, but it was really
Mm.
interesting to kind of learn more. And it's fascinating to be able to learn something about someone and then go and look at what the piece is about. But
Mm.
that's what, like, I like when I can go away from art, scratching my head and not like you said. If I looked at a painting of flowers, it would be a painting of flowers, and that's what it would mean. But I
Yes,
don't.
yes.
Maybe it's good to have many different meanings for something, so you can,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's I don't know. I don't know why people just want that like bowl of
Mm.
fruit. Like it's just it
Mm.
seems kind of lame to me. Like um
Mm. Mm.
and then like the thing about a muse, I think our it doesn't have to be, a person, but it can be a thing or a place or whatever it is. And I always wondered, I was always fascinated by muses because I think when I'm writing, I look back at stories and I think, well, maybe that was the muse while I'm writing it. It doesn't necessarily have to
Mm.
be in my head. And again, it doesn't have to be a person and place and stuff like that. Do you think like an artist needs a muse, or do you think that's more of just like a romantic idea of art?
Um, I suppose not really. I
Mm,
think an artist will need maybe a concept sometimes, but
mm,
sometimes I'd be good with thinking on my feet. I could be in traffic and something will come to me and I have to write it on a receipt in the car and go, oh my God, I have to do something on this.
yeah,
And muse, yeah, you can. I've had my muses. I've had a
yeah,
muse there in the last couple of years I would have worked with, and you would you'd be inspired when you work with someone that you connect with to
yeah,
maybe create more art with them, or if you're comfortable enough with them, you can really explore more darker sides to yourself if it's somebody you're that comfortable working with. So a muse is definitely it's an amazing tool to have when you meet the right person to do that with.
yeah.
Um, I suppose a lot of my work then, because I'm working with groups so much, I work a lot with adult groups as well. So you're dealing with real things. Like a lot of my groups, some of them would have come through illnesses, or they might have
Mhm.
been through separations, or different things. So that can be your muse in a sense, the concept that you work with. Again, as I was saying, we did a project there on Mental Health Month lately, when we had an exhibition for that with my students again. So again, the art was subjective, the
Yeah,
photos were subjective. So different people took so many different things, from that exhibition, which was great.
yeah.
The 16 Days of Violence campaign starts soon, so that's the awareness again against domestic abuse. So I'm taking a group of students to Carrick on Shore next week for that, and we're going to do a guerrilla art project. So basically, we're going to hit the streets with some art and then just remove it very quickly and photograph the process of that. So that'll be interesting,
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
so
And
yeah.
that's what I like about artists like yourself, because there is the constant movement. You're always
Mm.
changing and you're always dipping your toes in the
Yeah.
water of different
Mm.
things. And I do like seeing the process as well. That's something fascinating to me anyway.
Mm.
And like, even saw your post that you put up earlier on, and I think it was just mirrors in a
Yeah,
picture.
yeah.
And even that, like, because I think like it doesn't, I don't have to know what it is yet. It's almost
Mm,
like
mm, mm.
but you're intrigued by what it's going to become. Like,
Yes, yes, yes,
especially
yeah.
if you've seen the person at work before or seen their work
Mm.
before.
Yeah.
And I
Mm.
think I love that, you know, the unfinished idea that
Mm.
sometimes stays unfinished and then it becomes the actual idea, you know, that,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
That's enough nearly. Yeah,
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 I mean,
well,
you've,
yeah.
you've seen that in, you've seen that in music an awful lot, you know,
Mm,
where
mm,
the idea of a song might be one thing, and then it turns into some just an acoustic guitar and a you know a beatbox or
mm.
something like, and then it
Yeah.
becomes, oh well, that's actually really cool. So I do love seeing the kind of creative process and stuff. Can you explain? I know there's going to be a couple of people on here on listening here that won't know what cosplay is. Can you maybe fill people in?
So cosplay is, I suppose, it's the ultimate mask in a
Mm.
sense, really. Cosplay would be where you dress up and embody different characters. I would have been messing around since the early 90s. Now, I briefly mentioned my mother there. My mother was a great woman for dressing up.
Oh,
And I suppose, again, because of the 60s was her time, you know, so she's everything went back then. She was very creative with her clothes and styling, even for the time and for living in a small town like Cashel, you know. The first character I would have ever embodied myself was Xena. Do you remember her, Xena Warrior
yeah,
Princess? Yeah.
yeah.
What man doesn't? Um,
Yes, that's true.
she was amazing, you know. So she was the first character I became, and it's a form of escapism. I suppose when you're young, I would have been quite like very shy and timid, you know,
Yeah.
and I often have felt very unheard. Again, as I was saying, I was the only girl in this school of boys, you know, so you'd be your own hero.
Mm.
You know, it's kind of a way for me to be my own hero, like, you know, and I'm quite small in stature as well. I'm only 5 foot and 7 stone,
Oh,
you
are
know.
you 5 foot?
Yeah, that's all. So I'm always wearing high docks and stuff,
Okay.
like, you know, so to make myself look tall. But I'm quite light and slight as well. So if I can put a gun in my hand or a sword in my hand and just, you know, kick ass that way, that's okay. Then I feel good about myself, you know. So it's a bit of
Absolutely.
fun as well, you know.
Yeah. And I think, like, is it easier to have your photo taken as someone else?
Um, No, I feel it isn't
Okay.
myself. I find those shoots more challenging than if I can go out and go with something that's coming from the heart, like, you
Yeah.
know. I would feel because there's a bit of pressure on to kind of be that character.
Mm.
But lately I was working with a photographer who did the last series of the Harley shoots and the kind of woman around the Joker. And she was great because she was saying put your own spin on the character. So that was
Yeah.
great because I was able to just relax then, you know. But if you're trying too hard to embody that character in their way, that's pressure, you know.
Yeah, and that, like, that's what I wanted to ask, because you
Mm.
like it's a, you're dressing up as like pop culture icons. Like I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
Catwoman, the Joker, Harley Quinn. You're just
yeah.
an assassin as well. And like,
Mm.
do you think, like, because I used to try and think of it like in you know, after seeing your photos, and like, how would it be? Do you need a certain level of confidence to do that?
You would, I suppose, but
Mm.
like it kind of gives you confidence as well because I would come across as confident, but I wouldn't be deep down. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? I'd be very unsure of myself, very unsure of I don't know, like I'd be nervy as well and quite my self-esteem at times would drop. I suppose
Mm.
that's the thing with struggling with your mental health on and off anyway. Now I'd always have the mask on. Like,
Mm.
'cause when I'd say that in class, they'd say, God, you don't come across like that. But I
Yeah.
would be very, you know, I'm always in a knot before I teach a new class of people and things like that, you know, be very anxious. But I think you undergo kind of a psychological transformation where you're putting on this makeup and putting on
Yeah.
this character and this costume and things. So I think that helps, you know,
I
with your
think
self-esteem and your confidence. Like,
I think that's like what I've like seen myself and heard myself about what cosplay does. It's a kind of a
mm,
sense of empowerment and
yeah,
taking on the role of someone else. But it's interesting to hear you say about like putting your own spin on it. Like, you know,
mm,
your who you're collaborating with said about putting your own spin on it. And I would
yeah,
definitely see that in the Joker pictures, because I knew it was the Joker, but there was obviously, because you know the ha 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 and the kind of, you know,
mm,
the
mm,
makeup here. Um, and I saw, sorry, yeah, I saw that like in the Joker pictures, but there was something different in it, and it's nothing to do with the Joker was a man, and it was nothing to do with that, the comic books.
mm,
But it was just, I think there was your own spin on it, and
mm.
it looks like you're having a lot of fun, which is probably
Yeah,
the main thing.
it is, of course, yeah. And it's like, you know, yeah, putting your own spin on that
Yeah.
again, like, you know, and it just kind of in a sense it makes you feel visible as well, like, you know. I don't know if that makes sense, but you
Mm,
know, it's just a way to be seen differently, maybe, you know, because I suppose as well, my job would be very sometimes be, I wouldn't say high pressure,
mm.
but like working with different groups, it can nearly drain you at times. So it's nice to have your me time and to just go a bit all out with it, like, you know. So it's a good way to de-stress as well, believe it or not,
But
you know.
you know,
And I
it's
mean, think about it, when we're all kids, we love dressing up.
yeah.
You know, before Halloween became the big kind of commercial thing that it is now. But I remember going into like my mother's press and pulling out clothes and hats belonged to my grandfather and stuff. You know, you all get lost in that kind of thing when you're young, dressing up and stuff. So it's kind of nice to go back to that away. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I would have went to kind of different counselling things and they'd be telling me write letters to my inner child and all that, but I'd rather dress up like my inner child, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? My
and
way of
that's
doing stuff. You
it's
know.
you know it's important to have that kind of freedom to create and play around with stuff. And you know when I did I used to do like live stuff. So I was chatting to you actually a little bit about that. You were asking was it live, and I used to do some live short kind of interviews with some people who were specific in something, you know, very that I maybe wouldn't get an hour out of, but you know, 20 minutes. So it was a lot of fun. Then I started doing some on my own, but like when I was hitting that button, you know, to go live, or even sometimes still to put like an episode out, I get that little bit of nerves. Do you get that with those pictures?
Before I post them.
Just before you post them, yeah.
Yes, I do. I
Yeah.
do. And because I think there's a thing like, you know, where you post them, right? And so of course you'll get your comments and people will say great, but then you'll get your looks in your own town as well, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
you know, God, look at her. Who does she think she is?
Yeah.
Get to her. You know, you do get it. I'm sorry, but you do. And
Yeah.
they'll be the ones posting this, support your own women and be
Yeah.
your own hero and all this, but they can't do it to somebody they know, you know, that kind of way. So I think a lot of it is I don't know, but it used to bother me at the start and stop me from expressing myself, but now I don't care anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
look, it's hard to find that headspace. And I think for people who are maybe in their early 20s, it's even more difficult because they haven't
yeah,
quite worked things out. But you know, what I think now is like some people like the podcast, and that's what I'm going to put out for those people. And you know, I hope they like it, and that's what it should be. You know, it should be, and it's the same for your art in general. And you know, I wanted to ask because you did, and again, you know, when people always ask me how I come up with my guests, where do I get my guests from, and I've already mentioned where I saw you for the first time on
yeah.
Instagram and stuff. But there was something that like I ask people with tattoos sometimes, like why tattoos, and what do they all have a meaning? And like you put up one the other day about the quote that's on your left, is it your left collarbone across there?
Yeah.
And like you that was lovely what you said about that. Maybe some people won't have read that. What does that
So I'm trying to read it here now. Veni Vici. It's the one I saw, I
yeah.
conquered. Okay, so it's in Latin, and I put up a post the other day because I often wear a bull, and I would have been into a lot of alternative practices years ago, so I would have, you know, delved into my spirit animals and spirit guides. So mine are the bull and the raven, and I have the raven here as well with
Edgar Allan
Nevermore
Poe.
by Poe or Poe, yeah. And so yeah, I suppose the strength in this will be my next tattoo. So just before COVID, I got to work a bit in Spain with teacher exchanges, and then I went back myself and I did a few art courses there. Really loved inland Spain, not the resorty parts, you know.
Yeah.
And made an awful lot of friends there. I have an awful lot of creative friends there. I'd love to live there part time eventually, you know. But so yeah, I really just resonated with the bull and that saying, you know, I saw, I conquered. Because for me to go and travel on my own like that was massive. And then once I started, I couldn't stop. Tattoos, I never wanted a tattoo. And now I have like 39. I always thought, God, they're really permanent. But I think it's just, you know, you find the tattoo artist you click with that. I'm lucky mine, he really has the same interests as me. So we'd come up with ideas and designs between us, you know, and you could bounce off each other and fight with each other about them and stuff like that. And it's great. So I kind of, because I do a lot of part-time modeling, I'm kind of leaving one side of my body plain. But I would have say my arm would be quite spiritually themed, then I'd have more of my warrior stuff on my thigh, and then my back would have another theme again, and you know, my foot and leg would be something else. So, you know.
So they all have a meaning then.
Absolutely, yeah. I have a lot of quotes, you know, by different writers, as I was saying, that gothic fiction style, you know. So yeah.
Because my friend has a couple of ones that have meaning to do with his wife and kids, but also like, you know, some ironic ones that he just got because people go, "What's that?" And I don't know, it's just where it is. But so that's kind of, to
No,
me, that's
mine
kind of
have to
interesting.
have
Yeah,
a sense of meaning. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll never put anyone's name on me just in case.
I think that's a good call. I mean, we we've
Yeah,
we've heard too much about that, and
yeah.
it's funny. Like I do ask about it because I don't have any tattoos, and it's you know, it's not like it's a stance I have. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm like I
Mm.
don't ever, but it's I just kind of was wondering. Well, you know, the few times you think to yourself, like, what would I get if I was just to get one? Like, what would it be? And then you try to think
Mm.
of like what do you really love, or what would have specific meaning, like maybe a quote and stuff. And I don't like maybe something to do with the Beatles. That might be the only thing that might
Right.
scrape in, but I just can't think of any that would. I don't know. It's like, are you? Is there a cutoff point for you?
How do you mean?
Like, is there a number that you go like I hit 50? I mean 50 tattoos, and then I'm stopping.
Um, I suppose I don't think it's a number. I think it's more
Yeah.
when I've said what I have to say on it. Do you know that kind of way? Like,
Oh,
and I'm sure I think different experiences will mean I will add more to them. Like I want to get a bull, but I want to get it in Spain because that's where it means,
yeah.
you know. Other countries, maybe in places where I go that I like, maybe get something, a little emblem maybe of those.
Yeah.
Like no, I don't think like I have a lot of space to be filled in still, so
Yeah, but that's a
yeah.
really lovely way to put it though, when
Mm,
you've nothing more to say and you stop, because
yeah.
like I was just thinking like, okay, I'm gonna hit 40 tattoos, and then I'm just gonna that'll be enough for me. But you know, it's like there's so many good tattoo artists out there now though, and that
Mm,
may be the difference in what was
yeah,
happening now and what was happening in the,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, because you see a
Mm,
lot of people now and the tattoos are like uh, not great, like, and very,
mm,
very faded, and they're just. But I think
mm.
now when you see like, you know, people almost like are the canvas for these, like, you know, I think
Yeah.
that's always fascinating. But the idea that like everything has a meaning is really cool as well, because like
Mm, mm.
you can trace stuff back. But yeah, maybe you never know. Don't tell my dad,
Never
but you
know.
never know.
Mm.
One day I might have one, and you know.
Yeah.
But like, so when you aren't um doing all this stuff, it's funny when I talk to someone and I go through all the stuff they do, I'm like, what am I doing? But no, I do some stuff. I'm busy enough, like, you know.
Mm.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
Like to switch off, is it, and
Yeah,
relax?
just to kind of relax. Yeah,
So sketching. I love sketching. I love drawing.
right.
That's my thing. Bizarrely enough, what I draw to switch off is engines. I love engines. I could get lost in them. I suppose in college I had a metalwork teacher.
Mm,
I loved metalwork. I loved welding. I'm actually starting to learn again how to weld properly, and
right.
things like that. As I mentioned, it was a forge here years ago as well, so all that's kind of in me as well. But engines, I love drawing engines because there's so much to them.
Yeah,
Whether it's a bike or a car, I can just get lost in that. That to me is really mindful, recreating that,
yeah,
But I suppose, in a sense, then some people have found some of my drawings and seen them, and now they're like, "Oh, we draw a picture of my car," so that's becoming another job again now,
yeah,
But sketching, yeah, buildings, old buildings as well. I love drawing architecture, and things like that. So yeah, I wouldn't
yeah.
like drawing people too much, but buildings and engines, yeah, cars, they're my thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see enough of people, I suppose. But like,
Yeah.
you commented on my post. I'm during October. I said to you, I watch a lot of horror films and stuff like that.
Mm. Great
You're
taste
obviously,
in movies.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you very much.
Yeah, you
You
have.
seem to be into your films as well. Is it mainly
Mm.
horror, or is there a good mixture?
Yeah, I love horror. The older horror. I rather
Yeah,
a fright than to be ugh, too much
yeah,
blood. You know what I mean? But yeah, I love the old Hammer horror films as well. And the classic horror films. Black and white films too are beautiful to look
yeah,
at. And the caliber of the stars back in Hollywood. Then I love TV shows like Peaky Blinders. It's like cinematography. Like I
mm,
would often use stills from it for my photography classes just to show everything, composition, lighting, it has it all. I love, like, I was sitting down watching Bronson the other night there,
yeah,
Tom Hardy. Like, I love a
yeah,
good violent film as well,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm not chick flicks, I would vomit rather than watching that. I just couldn't do a chick flick.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. What's fascinating about, like, you talk about black and white films, obviously, and
Mm,
I love black and white films, and how the storylines seem to be a lot less complex. So they seem to be,
Yeah.
they have to throw some stuff in that was unnecessary. It was follow the storyline of maybe a love story, or something like, the one, what's it called? You've Got Mail. The first one of that it's Shop Around the Corner. That, like, if you don't put those two films beside them, you wouldn't think it was like a remake as such, because You've Got Mail had to, like, they always had to go an unnecessary step or two further. And I love that, like you mentioned about the old horror films and stuff. And the way they had to use the lighting and stuff is one thing, but like the cinematography, there's one of my
Yeah.
favorite like shots in a film is
Mm.
in the Frankenstein film, when the windmill starts burning down, and
Yeah.
he just kind of holds it back and just looks at
Mm.
it, and whatever's going on around it, it's just so amazing the way it's
Mm.
done.
Mm.
Now, like you said, Peaky Blinders, there's still a great
Oh, epic. Yeah,
cinematographers
it's
out there,
epic.
I remember, and I've seen so many films that didn't stand out as great films,
Mm.
but I think The Revenant is kind of one where the
Oh my
cinematography
God,
of The
yeah, that's
Revenant,
Tom Hardy again. Yeah,
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 Tom Hardy again.
yeah.
But just to look at that, like it's
Mm.
just
Beautiful.
amazing, and I
Mm.
that's another thing which must stand out to you as a photographer. Those kind of little
Mm.
snapshots almost of certain,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Because
takes.
CGI, I don't know, would you agree with me, but it's destroyed films.
Oh, it's dreadful. Yeah,
Absolutely horrible. Like, it was great at the start, but it was the start of the finish, wasn't it?
yeah,
Really, you know what I mean? It's just too easy now to make a film sitting on a laptop. When you think of the work that went into things
mm,
years ago, in the proper studio days, it's terrible. Like, I don't know, are you familiar with the film Ed Wood that Johnny Depp
yeah,
was in? Yeah,
yeah.
I love that because it shows all that time of Bela Lugosi and all that. So just the
And
effort that went into even the B movies,
yeah,
was brilliant.
and like the guy Ed Wood, who's considered the worst director of all time.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a lot of fun. But like also, yeah, like you said, those effects that were happening, not special effects, like
Mm.
the practical effects that people had to put
Mm.
together to show.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago in an episode, and I always kind of use it as an example of The Thing with Kurt Russell,
Mm.
as those, like, they're creepy as anything. Aliens, obviously, another one where they use
Mm.
practical effects to one thing, but you draw, like, you talk about gothic kind of horror fiction as well, and they can be made. I've seen some of them made it, like Shirley Jackson, which is a beautiful, like, gothic horror author, and really, talk about paring stuff back.
Yeah.
Her novels and her short stories are as creepy as anything that you'll read,
Mm. Mm.
without gore and all the unnecessary stuff that goes along with it. Really,
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
what's
Just the
that one?
shock value.
The shock
Mm.
value. There's that one. There's one called The Lottery. Now, I wish I could. It's a very short story, to be honest. But if anybody gets a chance to read it, they should read it. But it's.
Mm.
I don't really want to say what it's about, just because I don't want to spoil it for people. But
Mm.
let's just say the person who wins the lottery doesn't have as good a time as they might if they,
Right.
won it
Okay.
in Ireland.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
the author I had on last week had a very similar story in his collection as well. And it was, again, almost like a draft. Put it, the way, like in the Vietnam
Mm.
draft, you
Mm.
get picked,
Mm.
you're not really a winner. So that's what it's kind
Mm.
of like. But I imagine, Cher, that Christmas is a particularly busy time for you.
Manic, yeah. I think my Christmas nearly starts in September.
Right.
Um, Working with community groups, totally booked out all the time. And those bookings will come in March usually. And
Right.
then I love just working with the kids and just people from, who want to just come and do crafts
Yeah.
in a more relaxed atmosphere here on Saturdays. So like yesterday I had a full day on here now, and then there's crafts. But I do like it because people are generally in good form, and it's nice
Yeah.
to get into the buzz of Christmas.
You,
I like it. I find January hard. I think a lot of people do
yeah.
mentally and everything. It's just such a slump. The dark nights are still
Yeah.
in. So I find January very lonely time anyway. Do you know that kind of a way? So because I'm not back with groups, and I'd live quite a solitary life myself. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I'd be giving out about it, and then there's other times I'd be like, God, I couldn't deal with anyone in my life at the minute. You know what I mean? But
Yeah. I get
yeah.
you with the January thing, because
Mm.
now, to be fair though, speaking of the gym, I mean, the gym can get quite busy in January, because that people have the resolutions
Oh
of
yeah,
getting
yeah,
fit,
yeah,
so there can be that. But I get you with the come down after Christmas and all
yeah,
the
yeah,
mania of
yeah.
Christmas, and there is there's those moments when sometimes you're at home and you've a book on your lap and you're just delighted that there's nobody around me and I can just relax. But then, but of course, and that's easy for me to say. There's obviously some people out there who can't have that like at all, don't like being on their own, and they can't deal with their own company, and that it is very difficult, and
Yeah.
it can go back to mental health. And I'm we've probably been over this before on the podcast about that, like that, it's just looking out for people that you think may be vulnerable to that. We had to go over and over it during the COVID thing that, keep an eye on
Absolutely.
people. So there is that kind of thing. But for yourself, like in December when it's mad, mad busy all the time, you do need that as well. It just comes with the territory. But Cher, this is probably the most important question. Where can people, if they want to see some of your art and stuff like that, where can people find you?
So at the moment, Facebook, Chers Creative Cabin is my page, and then Instagram the same. I would have a Google business site as well, so it's Chers Creative Cabin as well. And then for my own art, I'm going to just actually, I'm working on a website for that at the minute, just for my own conceptual work and photography and poetry, because I write a lot as well, as you touched on earlier. So yeah, all of that will be on that. But for now, anyway, it's Chers Creative Cabin.
Just to kind of, I'll obviously add that in when I put the podcast out. But with poetry and stuff like that, is that like, again, a relaxing thing for you? You're not like,
it is.
right.
And as I was saying, often it's in traffic, or I
Right,
find or because say I could be in a town where I'm doing 2 classes in the morning and 2 after lunch. So I'm basically eating lunch in the petrol station or on the side of the road somewhere or something, like something will hit me because of something I'd see in traffic or people watching, or something that would just occur to me of that I'm feeling, or and I'll just roll with that then, and it can become a piece of writing. And then what I do with my like that piece with the mask, that was based on a piece of writing called Sometimes I Feel. So the writing can inspire the photos or vice versa, so it all merges together.
Yeah, what's great, like, and I mentioned already, what is great that you have so many different things that you do. It's not just concentrating on one specific area. It's like you try, and I think that's such an important thing, and it's such it invigorates the mind as well. Like
but
you said,
it keeps it interesting for me as well. Because otherwise I'd hate to be just stale. And I think like every day is a school day. You know what I mean? So somebody I meet in a class could show me something new or let me think of something else. I do a lot of intergenerational work as well. So like the youngest person I had here at the weekend was 4, and the oldest person I would have worked with up to the weekend was 86. So you've got that's a wealth of knowledge. You have the newer end of the scale and the people, where they're still vibrant and chatting and passing on knowledge, and it's great.
I thought about, like, earlier on, if you're teaching a child or helping a child, showing a child about like art and stuff, there's no wrong way of doing it.
No, absolutely not.
Whereas I'm teaching 4-year-olds jiu-jitsu, there's definitely a wrong way of doing it. So there's a big difference between it. But I think the fact that the creative process and the idea that just go your own way and see what turns out is fascinating. But Cher, you've been a brilliant guest and a lovely chat on a Sunday. That's all right. Listen, if you wouldn't mind just sticking around, I'll finish this out and then I'll take a photo if that's okay with you.
Okay, no bother. Yeah.
Excellent. I also want to thank John Francis for all the tech stuff. He's over in Utrecht, I think that's how you pronounce it, at the moment, and he better be back to put this up on Wednesday. This is thanks also to my mom, my dad, granddad, Jaron Calvin, for the graphics and the music. We're on YouTube. Subscribe if you would, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and then all the usual podcast platforms. Thanks to everyone for tuning in this week. And once again, Cher, thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
We'll be back next week. Take care. Bye.